Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron, and welcome to The Dungeon Minister! We've just gotten back from the adventure of the Barrow Wight, and finally, leveled up our 2 elves. They are now level 2. And the thief, believe it or not, is just touching level 4, just about to get there. Thieves progress at a crazy fast rate in the BECMI rules. So she's actually about to go into the second book, the expert level book. The boys had been talking about wanting to go to Kilmarnock, and so I thought, all right, we'll take them down to the city. But I don't want to just make it a trip to the city for shopping or something like that. I thought I'd hook an adventure in there as well. And their recent encounter with the lizard men had given me the idea that maybe they could meet them again. Maybe that could be another enemy that I introduce that is not a storyline enemy, but just one that can pop up now and then. They're tougher than kobolds. They're tougher than kobolds, and it just adds another interesting layer. I also liked the idea that they were slavers, that they might occasionally capture someone and take them off as a slave. That added a wrinkle to the story. At any rate, how to get them down to Kilmarnock. So I decided to play on some of the lore of Honeywood. You may remember, Honeywood used to be a mead-producing town. There were giant flower fields around it, fields of giant flowers and giant bees, and so honey was amply produced, and they used it to make mead, honey wine. So I thought, well, they don't make the mead anymore. They don't have the huge bees, they don't have the enormous quantity of honey, but maybe they make a honey ale. Maybe they still retained some beekeeping up there, just on a small, regular bee kind of scale, and so they make a honey ale. Okay, and there's a shipment of honey ale that's going to be taken down to Kilmarnock by boat, and the adventurers can be hired as guards because the lizard men have been restless. That's why the attack, right? So they meet the head brewer, and they meet the woman who handles the trade between Honeywood and Kilmarnock, the one who actually organizes taking the barrels down and getting them sold to one of the local pubs down there. So, one morning they meet the boat at the docks, and away they go. The journey is uneventful. They make their way through the marshes. There is one instance of some noise in the underbrush, and they catch sight of a lizard man, and an arrow is shot at the boat, but it misses, it goes wide. I just wanted to introduce some danger. Give them a sense that the enemy is out there. At any rate, they get just beyond the marshes by nightfall, and they need to make camp. And they pull up onto the shore out in the open grasslands that are south of the swamp and before you get to Kilmarnock. And I added an encounter here mostly for my youngest boy's sake. He was a bit grumpy that his brothers had magic swords and all he had was this ring, right? He wasn't seeing the value of a ring of animal control, so I thought I'd throw something in for him. So at night, the camp that they're at, along the riverfront, is surrounded by a herd of wild oxen. They're out coming to the river for a drink, right? And so they wake up surrounded by these enormous beasts. The boatmen are really nervous. Like, this is not good, this is not good. They could stampede at any moment. If we startle them, if we do anything, they're gonna stampede. And then, I've got a ring. And so he commands them to walk away and leave them. And then he's getting an idea, oh, maybe this isn't so bad, this is pretty cool. Anyhow, they get into the boat and down they go. They come to Kilmarnock. Now, we had decided that the thief, Fofire, originated somewhere in one of the villages around Kilmarnock, so she's familiar with the city. She's been here before. And Touchberry, the halfling, would have come here from the Shire, which is to the west and a little bit north, but the roads go through Kilmarnock. So Touchberry has been here before, but only briefly, on his way through up to the Honeywood area. The 2 elves, however, have never seen a great city of men. Kilmarnock is not an enormous city. It's a northern city. It's quite far from the densely populated Southland, but it's the biggest thing up here, and it is substantially built of stone. And this is something the elves haven't seen a lot of. Their homes tend to be woodland, in the woods, integrated into the trees. There's some stonework, but certainly not at this scale. As they approach, there of course are some buildings outside of the city walls, shops and stables and whatnot, scattered about on the roadways. But then they come to the city walls, and they are impressive. There's a massive stone gateway over the river with a huge iron portcullis. Now, the portcullis is up, it's the middle of the day, and so they sail right in. But it is an impressive sight. The river here bounded by stonework and walkways and buildings built right to the river's edge, holding it into a narrow channel. There is bustle and color and noise, and it is impressive. As they come near the middle of the city, there are two dominant buildings, and the ale merchant who's leading the expedition tells them that one of them is the Palace of the Count. That's where the Count lives here in his seat of power. The other is Marnock's Kill, Marnock's Cell, the shrine to Marnock. And that has an enormous tower built on it and a huge interior space, a large, well, we'd say a cathedral, a large church, a large space. They don't go quite as far as that. They dock off to the side and begin unloading to take the barrels through one of the market streets. And this street is full of smells. There's spices and meats and fruits and vegetables being sold. This is one of the areas of the town where food that is brought in is on offer to sell. And off of it branch other little streets for specialty things. There's a cheese lane and that kind of stuff, right? There is a pub there, an inn, called the Leather Tankard, and that's where they're bound. So the four adventurers form the guard, two in front, two behind, to bring these goods through, because, you know, a bunch of casks of ale, that's a tempting target. And they have to clear the crowds away a little bit. You know, major shipment coming through. There's like 3 wagons, loads of barrels coming through. So they navigate through the crowd and help them get through. They come to the pub, and the unloading commences. Now, at the front of the pub, there are a couple of windows and a door. There's also a staircase which leads down underground. That goes directly to the cellar, and that's the way food and drink and supplies are brought in for the tavern. The adventurers help do some of the unloading, so they get to see a little bit of the cellars. They don't see a lot of it, but it's full of barrels. Some of them are empty, and the Honeywood crew are going to load those up the next day to take back. There are also full barrels of other types of ale that they've bought from other places. And other foods are stored down here. Again, they don't see a lot of the cellars. They see a little bit. But this is where they're going to stay. As part of the deal of escorting these goods down, they get free room and board as long as it's at the Leather Tankard, because, of course, Honeywood has a deal worked out with this particular inn. So they're told, well, you can go explore the city, come back here for your evening meal and to sleep, and, we'll see you in the morning. Great. Off they go. And then it's just pure role play. They say, I want to find this. I want to see if I can buy that. And so on the fly, we're just saying, okay, well, you'll need to go to the Armorer's Street. Bob Johnny wanted to buy a 2-handed sword, a great sword. Well, okay. They have to ask directions. Where is that? Where can we go? Touchberry wants to buy some wine. He wants to get some nice wine to take home. So there's an open market out in the center of the city. There's an open space, and there's all sorts of stalls set up there. So we just role-play, finding the wine merchant, haggling for a price, and he buys a few bottles of wine to take home. Great. They get to the Armorer's Street. Fofire spots someone. A member of what Dale Kingsmill over at Monarch's Factory calls the varied trades. I think that's the term she uses. At any rate, I took a lot of this from Monarch's Factory. She did a great episode about thieves can't. Thieves can't wear plate mail armor. No, not like that. Thieves can't, that sort of lingo of thieves. So she spots this person because of a badge that he's wearing that indicates he's a member of the varied trades, and that he's looking to hire. She asks him what's going on, what's happening in the city. He relates that there has been trouble. The Thieves Guild is under suspicion because all through the city, late in the night, people have been attacked, mugged, some of them killed, robbed, and the suspicion has fallen on the Thieves Guild. The thief insists it's none of their people, but they are looking for help to solve the problem. None of them are at liberty now to go out at night. They're all afraid to go prowling the streets at night because they're going to be suspected. But they need to figure out what's going on. Fofire brings the job to the rest of the group. They all think it's a good idea. They're on the case. It's getting near to mealtime, so back to the tavern they go. And they enter into the main floor, and here they find in the front room lots of tables and chairs around a fireplace. And there's lots of people, though. There's no space for them to sit, so they work their way to the back room. Here they have, in the back room, they come in, and just to their right, there's stairs, one set going up, one set going down. To their left, there's a table, a large table set out where a man is preparing food, the fire behind him and the table being his workspace. This is where the food is prepared. In one of the corners, there's a separate room where a brewer is making their home-brewed beer. She's making a beer of their own that they also serve here. And then there's another room full of tables and chairs. And just then, some spots clear out, and the adventurers are shown to a seat. There's a barmaid passing by. She says, "Oh, you're looking to sit down. Come along, I'll seat you here." And as they're sitting, they order some food, and they have some fun picking through the menu. "Oh, I'll have the steak and kidney. Oh, I'll have this thing." It's just kind of fun. But as they're waiting for their food, they see one of the servers, the other servers, go downstairs, and there's a scream. The whole place stops. The adventurers jump up, weapons drawn. "Let's go!" They jump into action. I mean, they know, obviously, it's an adventure, right? They know that this is their cue, jump into action. But they go downstairs, where they find this small room where a barrel of each kind of ale that they serve, and wine, etc., a barrel of each is kept, along with a shelf full of leather tankards, actual leather tankards, which is where the place gets its name, and a sink to wash them out in. There are 2 hooks on the wall. One of them holds a lantern. The other one is empty. These lanterns are for the serving, the barmaids. If they need to go and find something in the cellar deeper in, they grab one of these lanterns and go. One of them's missing. They grab the other and go out into a hallway. There they see wet pavement. The floor here is wet. And what looks like it may be footprints, but they can't really tell. It's a bit of a mess. They follow a set of them up into a room at the top here. Here, there are barrels of the home-brewed ale. There's actually a trap door here that the brewer lets them down into the lower room through. Nothing in there. They go through another room, and here they find cheeses and all sorts of things. It's a buttery. It's where all the dairy products are stored. It's very, very cool in this room. It's deeper in, and it's cut right into living rock. Through another door, they enter a room where empty barrels are kept. Now, they don't go through the door to the north there. They're searching wildly, of course. They're casting around looking for where this scream has come from and where that other barmaid went. But they don't go through the door to the north. That would have been interesting if they had, but they didn't. They see this room full of empties. They charge through another door into a room full of wine casks. This is where most of the wine is stored, except for the one barrel, again, the one cask that's being used at the time. And then into the room where they had been before, where they had helped unload Honeywood's ale. They don't see anything at first, and then over in the corner, they spot it. There were other casks in the corner of a different brew. One of them is tipped over, and there's rubble and water all around it. Also, there is a channel cut in the floor just here. It goes from those sinks in the first room they went to. It goes under the wall and down through the floor. It's the drain, and it connects up to the city's sewer system. It just goes right out of the cellar and becomes, instead of a trough, it becomes a pipe and heads out into the sewers. But just where that trough goes out through the wall has collapsed and been pushed in. Something has gotten in through the sewers. Touchberry, being the smallest, can get in easily, and he grabs that lantern and he looks in. Sure enough, that flow from that sink used to go through a little pipe, but that has all crumbled away, and they discover a small passage and then a chamber at the end of it. Now, by this time, the other members of the staff, the owner of the inn, etc., have all come down, a couple of patrons, to see what's going on, to see if they can help. The adventurers say, "Wait here, we're going to check this out," and in they go. Now, they crawl through this low passageway. Even the halfling has to bend over a little bit until they come to a small, low-ceilinged room. It's a junction spot in the sewer system. Pipes come in from different directions. 2 of them are too small to crawl through. One is big enough to get down. It's the main trunk heading toward the river. But more importantly, there they find the unconscious barmaid. A quick check says that she is still alive, And they pass her out through the passage to some of the other people who have come to help. They pass her out through there, and they say, we're going to chase after these guys. And down the passage they go. Now, this passage is a little bit larger, and here I should point out the scale on this map is 5 feet per square, so this is not big, but it's a bit bigger than the first one at least, and it's certainly taller. They're able to sort of crouch walk down it. They get to the end to another junction room, and here they find them. Lizard men. Stop doing that! Before they even get to the room, an arrow comes flying down the passage. It hits the halfling. Minor damage, but the battle is on. Roll for initiative, everyone. The 3 lizard men are in here. The one with the bow is quickly retreating into a corner. The 2 others, one with a club, one with a spear, stand forward. There's not a lot of room to fight in here. The ceiling it's higher than the first chamber, but it's still not very high. And we're still only talking about a 10-foot by 15-foot room. So the combat is close, and it's fierce. The adventurers do prevail. The lizard man with the bow tries to escape, but Bob Johnny suddenly remembers that he has a magic missile and magic missiles him and stops that. Then they have to decide which way they want to go. The main trunk down toward the river, or this other passage which also enters the room. A little trickle of water is coming through. Someone has dumped out a pail of water or something like that. Maybe it's a chamber pot. Ew. At any rate, they have to decide which way to go. They decide that they are going to go upstream because they can hear something up that way. This passage is narrower than the one they came down previously. They can still navigate it, but it's tight. They come to an even smaller room, 7 foot by 10 foot, where there are crouching 2 lizard men. And the fight is on. Now it is even tighter quarters. Missile weapons here are pointless, and the great axe that Bob Johnny carries, he's having to just use it to jab with. He really can't get a full swing in. There's just not enough room with all the other people there. But they do overcome these 2. One they kill, one they capture. Oh, what are we going to do with him? We don't have any rope, right? They weren't planning on some big wilderness adventure. They were doing an escort mission to a city. They didn't bring all their gear. They don't have their rope with them. What are we going to do? So they improvise. They take some of the belts and garments and straps that the lizard man, the dead one, and the living one have around them to hang weapons on. They take those off and bind hand and feet at least. They send Touchberry up through the passage that comes into the room from further upstream to see if there's anything there. This passage is quite narrow, hard to get through, but what Touchberry discovers is the lizard men's treasure room. This is where they have been hoarding treasure because it is they who have been robbing people at night. They are the ones responsible. They had kind of picked this up already, and I'm sure you had as well. They go back to that second chamber where they fought the 3 lizard men and head down. They head down the main passage. Now this one is tall enough they can walk through because this is now the main trunk line on its way to the river. About halfway down, they come to an intersection. Now there's a tiny pipe coming in from the east, but a larger one from the west. But it's still pretty small. You'd have to crawl to get through it. And they're about to dismiss it and move on when they hear something up that way. They hear scuffling and movement. But at that same moment, they look around the corner. There's a slight bend in the passageway. They look down and they can see daylight. Here is where the passage empties out into the river. And silhouetted in the opening is the shape of a lizard man. He's looking out, watching to make sure that no one comes in. He's not paying any attention to what's upstream of him, and the noise of the outside has prevented him from hearing any of the combat happening behind him. So, Fofire decides she's going to sneak up on this lizard man and backstab him. Great. The thieves' abilities are coming into play. I roll for move quietly, and it works. So she doesn't know the roll went well, but she's moving down the passageway quietly as her friends are tensely watching in the background. She gets up to him and goes to strike, and rolls like a 3. Good job on the sneaking, bad job on the hitting. Lizard Man spins around and hits her. He had a sword. Hits her, and the fight is on. Now, luckily, remember the elves are now 2nd level. Bob Johnny has memorized 2 magic missile spells. comes streaking down the passageway. And Foefire's standing here, and the lizard man is there, and the missile comes right around. Because, of course, the magic missile never misses, right? And he can see the lizard man. He can't see all of him, but he can see the creature. So, right around, hits the lizard man, strikes him, he goes back. Doesn't kill him, but knocks him back enough. Foefire strikes and finishes him off. Okay, they've gotten this solved. There's nothing else out here. Now we're out into the wide open city. There's no more lizard men out there that we can see at least. What about that side passage? So they send Touchberry up there, and he discovers a nest of giant rats. He's going up, and it's getting louder, the scuffling and snuffling, and then it stops, like whatever it is waiting for him. So he's getting really tense now. And he moves up, and there's two pipes enter this very, very small little area. These two pipes enter it, and on top of those pipes, there's a rat's nest. Literally, a rat's nest of giant rats. And he sees that, and they glare at him, and he glares at them, and then he just backs away. He just decides it's not worth it, and the group decides, no, don't bother the rats. They're just rats. Leave them alone. There was 7 or 8 copper pieces or something in their nest. It was no big deal. So, no loss. They head down now to the river, because remember, they still have a captive lizard man. They head down to the river, and they flag down someone passing and say, go get a town guard. We've got a prisoner here. We've got a lizard man who's snuck into the city. So, he goes and he brings the town guard, and they hand over the lizard, and all's well. They go back up to the uproarious applause of the people at the inn. They have saved the barmaid, and they have solved the problem of who is sneaking through the city at night. Now, that all takes some time to sort out, proving that it was the lizard men who were doing it, not the Thieves Guild. That all takes some time, and the Thieves Guild had hired them to prove this, so that payment takes a little while to get to them. In fact, it wasn't until about 2 adventures later when they had returned to Honeywood, and there's a package waiting for them, and it's some gold coins in payment for their services. At any rate, they go back to the tavern and have their meal with all of the drink they can drink, free on the house, and wrap up their time there. The next day, they help load the empty barrels, and back up to Honeywood they go. Of the treasure they found down in the sewer system, some of it they can identify who owned it, and it can be returned. We're talking about jewelry, things that are identifiable. Some of that returns to its original owner. Some of it, its original owner was killed in the attack, and so it goes some of it to next of kin. Some of it, there's no one to claim, so the adventurers get to keep that. They get to keep the coin because you can't prove whose coin was whose and how much was robbed from you, etc. So they keep all the coin. Most of the gems and jewelry are kept. I give them experience points for all of it, even if they give it back, because they earned it in combat and then returned it to who owned it, which I just think is a kind and lawful thing to do. So as a bonus for playing their alignment, that I give them the experience for that. Speaking of experience, this is enough to bump Foefire up to 4th level and enough to bump Touchberry up to 3rd. So now we have a 4th level thief, a 3rd level halfling, and 2 2nd level elves. They're starting to get some confidence now, both as players and as characters. And they are all set for their next adventure. An adventure that is all about the past and about the future.